What is up? 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 What is up, Grocknation? Welcome back, everybody, this evening to the arcade for another video for all my ASMR lovers out there. Tonight we have a very... I'll get a list video for sure. It's going to be a list video, but we're going to be discussing certain things about this that might piss people off. It's not meant to be. This is all like personal, obviously, from experiences. I'm gonna make a list of the top 10 places I would like to live based on where I've traveled and where I've lived country-wise. It's a list of 10, so I've been to 22 countries. So I didn't want to do 22 and then name a country at the very bottom, and that would be pretty disrespectful for sure. But don't feel bad if your country is at the lower end of this top 10 list. They're on the top 10 for a reason. So I've been to some real shitholes. But with that being said, guys, before we start, obviously, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you want more of this kind of material in your algorithm. As well, guys, if you've been to these countries or you're from these countries and you have some opinions on the matter, be sure to leave it down below. Maybe I, misinterpreted someplace. I will say, I am not going to judge a country based on being there for 1 day or 2 days. These are countries where I've been minimum 3 to 4 days. I've traveled them, multiple towns, not just like a train stop and then I was there for a night and then I trained somewhere else. No, it's not like that. I've been to these places. Some of them I've been to multiple times, so that's where I'm getting this this opinion from. So, with that being said, let's get started. Number 10 is probably going to be the longest one we're going to discuss because of current events in the world. But oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I just cracked a can of Coke before I put this up. Last time I did this video, that was so friggin' parched. Okay, so coming in at number 10 is my southern neighbor, the United States of America. Now this makes the top 10 because of the pros of being in the top 10. I should say beforehand, I'm going to give every single one of these pros and cons on this list, including number 1. It'll have some cons as well. So with that being said, United States of America, I've been to the U.S. a lot. Obviously, I'm from Canada. For concerts, obviously. I lived in New York for a week in the Bronx. In New York, in the Bronx. That was an experience with my sister and my wife, my fiance then. We rented an apartment in the Bronx. We fucked up and got it in Central Bronx. We thought we were getting South Bronx, but regardless, I lived there for a week. Like I said, I just came back from Minnesota in October, so like 3 months ago. But I'll give the cons first, and then we'll go to the pros. I would say the cons are definitely the gun violence. Canada's got violence for sure. Canada even has gun violence to a degree. With a lot of restrictions, it's a lot less common, I guess you could say. We don't have school shootings. We don't have mass shootings. I think the last major shooting we had in Canada was a crazy motherfucker that shot a cop, got in a cop car, and he was pretending to be a police officer. I think this happened in Quebec or Ontario. It was a long time ago. But even then, he had a bolt-action rifle, which as of now, which I don't agree with. Like I said, there's just things I just don't agree with. I'm a liberal person, but I'm not far left. I'm more center left. I think we should be able to have different firearms other than bolt-action rifles, which this came into effect 5 years ago. And the reasoning behind it was that we could, you could use that to hunt still. You don't need assault rifles and everything. I'm not saying we need assault rifles. No, I wouldn't want that in my country, but at the very least pistols, you know what I mean? Like something you can keep in your house to defend yourself. mind you, in Canada, like I said, you don't really get... Someone's gonna rob your house, they're not doing it with a gun, so... But that's definitely the number one reason, I would say. Like I said, I just came back from Minneapolis in October, and I'll give you an example. I might have fucked up drinking this Coke, guys. Me and my wife were in Mall of America. We were eating upstairs. The upstairs food court, it was a Saturday. The concert we were there for was on a Sunday. And we were eating, and out of nowhere, it's a packed mall Saturday in October. Apologies, Jesus. I don't think I could drink that anymore. Two guys were sitting at a table, and one stood up and screamed to the top of his lungs like they were going to start fighting. The whole food court went quiet and everyone looked. Now, this happens in Edmonton. Say, for example, Edmonton's Mall of, or Canada's Mall of America's West Edmonton Mall. This happens in West Edmonton Mall. Everyone looks over. I even look over, but I'm not nervous. It's just two guys arguing. What the worst case scenario? They're going to start fist fighting. Very worst case scenario, one might pull a knife on the other one, but one's not going to pull a gun on the other one. You know, very rarely will that happen. And if it does, obviously he's a criminal that's obtained it illegally. But in that moment, you know, I grabbed my wife's hand and I'm like, okay, I don't think in this situation there would have been a mass shooting. There would have been a shooting maybe, and one of us might have been hit by a stray bullet, is what I was thinking. That's fucked up. That, you know, you gotta think that way when you're in that country, but that's just the way it is there. And, you know, if you have kids, you put them in school there, there's probably not a big chance there'd be a shooting in your school, but the possibility is there, is the point. So that, for me, that's the number one reason. And if it wasn't for that, this would probably be a lot higher in my list, believe it or not. Because we're going to talk about current events here right away, but this would be higher on my list. That's the number one. Number two is, and it's kind of getting into the topic we're going to have to talk about, the political oven. It is there. Like, it is just, it feels like it's on the verge of civil collapse. And again, this is, when I went there in October, you did not feel that at all with the election looming. You know, but what you see in it, you read in the news, you never know what's real, what's not. It just, yeah, it feels like shit's about to go down there. So it's just not a very, very good environment to be around right now, I would say. I would like to say maybe there's prejudices there, but we have them in Canada as well. That definitely wouldn't be a reason. Number two is, the only other reason is most of the major cities are just too big for me. This is going to be a con for some of these other countries we're naming, but I like cities. I just don't like massive cities, and most of American cities are pretty big, like bigger than Canadian cities, obviously. Outside of Toronto's, believe it or not, maybe my American viewers don't know this, Toronto's one of the biggest cities in North America, America included. I think it's number 2 behind New York now, even. I think it's more than Chicago right now, which is crazy. But, yeah, those are the main reasons for sure. Those are the cons. The pros now. The pros are the US dollar. US dollar strong internationally as well. When I travel, the Canadian dollar is never good against the euro and the English pound. Whereas, you know, the US currency is always strong everywhere you go globally. It's almost like a global credit card, really, because almost everywhere takes it. Another thing, and probably the biggest reason a pro, is the infrastructure is identical. So when you drive over the border in southern Canada into a northern state, you'd have no idea you're in the United States. It'd take you a while to realize miles per hour instead of kilometers per hour on the speed signs would be 1. But everything's the same. The roads are the same. The laws are the same, pretty much. Road laws. Streets and highways and everything are roomy and very familiar. Yeah, I could literally move to the U.S. tomorrow and start work at a very similar job, and I wouldn't skip a beat. It wouldn't be uncomfortable at all. Well, not like some of the other countries that are higher on this list. So that's one as well. Another one is the food. In the late 90s, Canada nuked a lot of the food products that were high in sugar and high in fat in Canada. So, I mean, obviously we don't have the obese problem that the Americans have. But again, that goes beyond just, everyone can portion themselves, but that could be going deep in someone's depression or whatever to get to that point where they're, obese. But I'd like that option, to have access to that kind of food. And because there's certain things in fast food restaurants, for example, that they'll be in the U.S. and they will not be able to come to Canada for like a KFC or a McDonald's or something. We can't get it in Canada. Certain things on the menu, because it exceeds Canada's food standards. Same thing with sugary things. Every time I come back from the U.S., I load up on energy drinks because their energy drinks are fucking amazing. I'm jacked going through Warren and Manitoba when I'm coming up through North Dakota. But yeah, the sugar is really, really good. And the other big thing too is the military. Obviously, having that strong military, you're least likely to be, invaded. I don't think North America will ever get invaded regardless, but, it's good to have that assurance. At the same time, you're paying for it as well, in your taxes and everything, but, and probably the other thing, and this is going to get into our topic now, is the health insurance. Canada, we get free health insurance or free health care. Depending on where you live, you might have a bit of a waiting time. But for the most part, you're not having to pay these private insurance companies that may or may not deny your claim, which I know is a big thing that's happening in the U.S. right now. Obviously, this Luigi incident drove a man to murder a CEO. But, yeah, that's a big thing for a lot of people is the free healthcare. So now before we move on to the list, let's do a quick discussion of current events and what's happening. For most of my American viewers that are watching or listening to this, maybe you don't know as many Canadians, or you don't speak to as many Canadians as, obviously you might just be somewhere in the U.S. where you only know U.S. people. Canada does not want to join the United States. It's overwhelmingly a no. I'm obviously Canadian, and I have yet to meet a single person that wants to join the United States of America. There's no point. We're our own sovereign nation right now. Like I said, we like our free health care. We're differentiated from. We're different from the United States. And I think even our U.S. neighbors appreciate that and like that as well. It's kind of a break for them to come north. But there isn't any that I'm aware of that I've found, and obviously every single person I speak to is Canadian, so we're all in the same boat. So I don't know if you guys are listening to internet chatter, or maybe you're listening to certain news sites that are telling you. I know that moron's telling you guys down there that, we want to join him. We're not. We don't want to join him. We don't want to join the U.S., particularly under him. But, yeah, that's just the way it is up here. I think it's going to be terrible the next few weeks for everybody on either side of the border. Unfortunately, I don't see a point to this, but I think everyone's going to suffer, and it's very unfortunate that it's gotten to this point. Before we continue on, I remember in 2016 or 2015, right before the election, I was sitting in a pub in town, having drinks with coworkers after work, and we were laughing, going, man, I remember telling my friend, Dave, because it was Trump versus Hillary at the time. I'm like, Hillary's probably going to win, the only way I see Hillary losing is, there's always this conception that there's this perception that the U.S. don't want a female leader. It'll make them look weak, I guess. I don't know, but at the same time, I told him, it'd be kind of funny if Trump got in, because I wonder what the fuck kind of shit he would do. Like, he's not a politician or anything. Like, could he really fuck a bunch of shit up? We don't know. Like, it could be interesting to watch from the sidelines. Obviously, about 2 years into his, presidency, he attempted to put tariffs on our steel, and that affects my job directly. So I'm like, oh my god, it got settled, thank god. But I'm like, holy fuck, maybe we fucked up hoping this guy would get in, or I did, just to see what would happen. And then I never thought, I was like, there's no way they would ever go back to that, and they did. And now here we are on the verge of a massive tariff war that's going to cost people jobs on your side of the border. Might cost me my job. I don't know yet, but it's gonna be brutal. And yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, it's absolutely pointless. But it is what it is. That's who they voted for, and gotta live with it, I guess, down there and up here as well. Unfortunately, it's gonna affect us, but yeah, so that's number 10. The United States of America. They crack the top 10. Man, imagine if I did number 21. I could have some people pissed off of me because it's people that definitely, when I look at the geography of my viewers, I was thinking about doing the whole thing. They make up a good portion, like not a massive portion, but 10% of my viewers come from that country, so I would not want to do that. Okay, so coming in at number 9 is going to be the country of England in the British Isles. Let's go over the pros before we do the cons. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful countryside. Oh, gorgeous, picturesque. Big rolling fields and obviously beautiful coastlines. The scenery there is amazing. The little tiny towns. If you're not from the United Kingdom, the British Isles, or even old Europe, seeing these little towns. I always say if I lived in England, I first off I wouldn't want to live in a major city. I'd like to live in one of those little towns. And I ask myself how long before I'd get bored of it and be like, you know what? Because every weekend I told my wife I'd like to go and visit a new little town. Be a nice little little adventure for us. But after a while I think it would get old. But the countryside, the charm of it all, it's really nice. The people in England are actually really nice as well. I will say that's another pro as well. We haven't met any rude Englishmen. I remember I helped an old Englishman across the street in Earl's Court during a rainstorm when we were there. And he was so nice. He was so happy to hear we were from, I was from Canada. And, yeah, beautiful. Like I said, the architecture there is gorgeous if you're into that kind of thing. I am very old. It feels very, very World War II when you're there. It's nice in that aspect. The food, if you like fish and chips, amazing fish and chips there. My wife absolutely loves fish and chips, especially in London. English breakfast was one of my favorite things about touring. Great Britain is getting an English breakfast every morning. I didn't think I would like beans for breakfast and whatnot, but it was very, very, very good. So let's touch on some negatives. The biggest one, probably number 1, is the cost of living, the price there. The British pound, everything else, homes. I was actually looking at, every time we travel somewhere, we always look at the real estate, just out of curiosity. And we were looking at real estate in London. So London's all flats. And for my viewers that don't know what a flat is, it's like a condo, but like a condo cut in half. Like, so you got a whole bunch of these little apartments like lined up side by side by side, and they're flat, like as wide as this room. That's how wide about as wide as this room. That's how wide those houses are, and it just goes straight back. They're just tiny. So the price of one of those, I own a house right now in Canada here, the house I'm in right now, obviously, and I fucking own a lakeside cabin. One of those flats is more expensive than both my house and my lakeside cabin put together. That's how expensive it is there. Like I said, I'll never forget getting a Big Mac in London and going back to the hotel and checking my banking and realizing I spent 25 Canadian dollars to get myself a Big Mac meal. You're going, why are you traveling, Grock, and getting McDonald's? We were up for like 26 hours at some point. That was the worst trip ever, a worst start to a trip ever in 2015. And I was just desperate to get some food on us before we took a nap for the afternoon after getting out of the Heathrow airport. And McDonald's is everywhere. You know what you're going to get. My wife is exhausted and zombified as she was. She wanted to walk around and look for a fish and chips place. I'm like, no. This McDonald's is right next to our little hotel. Let's just go and grab McDonald's and take a nap, and then we can go out for a good, supper tonight. And I couldn't believe how much it was. I'm like, what the fucking shit? How can people afford to live here? And London, man, London and me, London, United Kingdom and me, or London, England. It's like Homer Simpson in New York. I always say bad shit happens to me there. I get hustled on Westminster Bridge. I lose shit. Like, it's just, I almost broke my tooth the last time I was there. I was in the Borough Market on a Sunday, and I got a cherry muffin, and it had a cherry fucking pit inside of it, and I bit down as hard as I could. Almost broke my tooth. My God, that would have been awful. Yeah, it would have been terrible. Infrastructure, unfamiliarity, I would say. That's going to be a lot for these upcoming countries I'm going to list, particularly the British countries. The roads are so narrow. There's zero room for error when you're driving on these roads, and you're driving on the left side of the road. For my North Americans, that's a little bit getting used to. I've driven British roads now for 3 full weeks total on all the trips we've gone on, so I'm kind of used to it by now. But it still takes some getting used to, and it's nerve-wracking as well. So there's that. The other thing is the weather. Not so much when we are out of London, but I always say every time I've been to London, we've spent about 6 days to a week total in London, England. It's never not been either overcast or straight up raining or foggy. I've never seen the sun in London. I've seen it outside in the north, like around York, Manchester, but it's always like really gloomy weather, depressing weather. A lot of these lists, guys, there's going to be the same pros and same cons. But yeah, we're going to go with that. That's London, or England and the United Kingdom. That's number 9. Number 8 is going to be a European country. And it's going to be a European country, probably some of the nicest people we've come across. It's someplace I've been to twice now. And about a week's worth of time in the country alone between a bunch of different cities. The country I'm talking about is Germany, Central Europe. Germany is a favorite place for me to land if we're flying to Europe. We want to go and visit family or just tour Europe, because it's Central Europe. You land in Munich and you can literally get anywhere in Europe from there, from the train station. So it's really good that way. The pros is the food. Really, really great food. Their street food is so fucking good there. Currywurst, white sausage is really good. Pork knuckle, holy fuck, man. Every once in a while I think of pork knuckle and it makes me drool. Like, I can never get it here. Wiener Schnitzel's a good one. That's in Vienna as well, which is basically a chicken cutlet with they serve it with cranberry sauce, and it's so damn good. The beer, German beer. I haven't had a bad German beer yet, and I try all my beers when I'm in Europe. Every country I go to, I try a beer. And yeah, German beer, you can't beat it. The Hofbrau's beer, beer hall in Munich. Oh man, the Radler. That is the best Radler, and they come in these great big Stiegels, like great big fucking mugs. And yeah, by far one of the best beers I've ever had in my life, but in terms of Radler, the best for sure. Like I said, transportation-wise, your center of Europe, you can get anywhere you want, so that's a huge plus as well. Beautiful architecture, very, very beautiful architecture. As I said, very friendly people. They are the friendliest people we've come across in Europe so far. Which, people that don't travel maybe think, oh, well, they're Germans, they don't. They're probably very rude and no, they're not. They're very, very nice. We were actually on a train from Munich to Rotterdam, and me and my wife were sitting together in a table, and we were sitting looking out the window. We'd been on a train for like maybe half hour, an hour at this point. And this mother and daughter got on a train, and we were sitting in their spots. They like they're like a table, 4 seats table, and you had 2 at the window and 2 at the aisle. And they actually had the windows. They bought the window seats. I didn't know I just thought you'd sit wherever in that row. And right away I got up like, oh my goodness, sorry. all sit on the aisle, and they didn't. They were like, no, it's fine. They were super nice, and they talked to us and everything else, and yeah, very, very nice people. Just everywhere you go, they give directions. They all speak English. They laugh like villains for sure, but don't let that fool you. They're big teddy bears for the most part. Cons. Price of living there would be crazy. Again, we were looking at real estate, especially in the cities Munich, Berlin. Super, super expensive. They're really, really hardcore against immigration. So integrating into the German culture there is notorious. In Europe, it's a hard, hard thing to do. They really, really want to keep their German culture and German people in Germany, and yeah, they don't like immigration of any kind, which is, I guess, respectable too. But they just don't want to lose their culture, which you can't, and you can't fault them for that. But they say it's very, very hard to integrate into the German culture as an outsider. I don't think it's a con, but their highway system's crazy. There's highways in Germany that have 0 speed limit. I'm not kidding you. The one going into Munich from the Munich airport is one of them. I remember being in the cab. They're all Mercedes cabs, by the way, and taking a Snapchat picture of the cab driver. He was doing 170 on that fucking road, and he was just barely keeping up the cars. Cars were passing him even, and he was on his phone the whole time. And I was looking at my wife going, don't even bother putting your seatbelt on. Like, if we crash, we're fucking dead. So there is that. I don't know if that's a pro or a con, though. I really don't know. Another con would be the weather. You know, they have longer winters. A lot like southern Canadian states. Nice summers, but again, you could be subject to a bit of a long winter there. It's not the greatest weather in terms of if you want to relax a bit and have a bit of a longer summer, spring. It's not opposite, or it's not the polar opposite of the next country we're going to talk about. But so yeah, that's number 8. That's Germany. Definitely, you know, a place I would definitely consider living. So that leaves us with number 7, and it's, like I said, the polar opposite. And number 7 will be Italy, again in Europe, just south of Germany. Super friendly people, Italians. Every time we go there, the one time we were there for a week and a half. In 2015, we've never been back, even though I want to go back. I love Italy. The pros, super friendly people. They're loud. They like to talk lots. They like to laugh lots. They always remind me of Native Americans. If you ever meet Native Americans like myself and you get us together, we're always laughing and telling stories. We're loud, big laughs. That's a lot like how the Italians are. They're big in that. The food, obviously, Italian pasta, stuff like that is really, really, really good there. The baking is good there, surprisingly. Germany and Amsterdam are the best baking in terms of baked goods we've ever eaten in all our trips. I still have been chasing a chocolate tart from Rome, Italy that I've never ever gotten before, or gotten since. Like, never even came close. The history there is just, it's immense. Like, it's almost like it's not quite Africa, but it's like the birth of this, not birth of civilization, but this massive, the world's first empire was there. Everything's so old, everything's got a story. Walking through, the Colosseum, touching the Colosseum in Rome, seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Pisa, the Statue of David in Venice, Florence, Grand Canal in Venice. Like, everything is just so old and so fucking beautiful. The con, we'll go over some cons now. I told you Germany, the winter's too long, or it could be a little cold and gloomy there. Italy, the summers would be too hot for me. Like, that's way too hot for me. When we were in Rome, we actually were there in August, and it was plus 41 Celsius. I couldn't believe it. I've never felt heat like that before. Like, my neck burnt instantly. I had to buy a fedora like I was a 90-year-old. I bought this cheesy little paper floral umbrella just to keep the sun off my neck the whole day we spent at the Vatican. It was fucking brutal, but I was like, my God, I could not do summers here like this. And those little Italians are walking around with long sleeve shirts and shit, in this weather. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So the weather would definitely be a con. Infrastructure and unfamiliarity would be another con. It's way, way, way too condensed, way too small for a massive city like Rome for you to get from point A to point B. You're driving these little roads, or you're driving just on straight cobblestone with no lines. There's no road lines. You're just driving on cobblestone, hoping you're not going to smoke anybody. Like, it would be a little nerve-wracking. That's something I haven't seen in the United Kingdom or Europe, driving anywhere else in Northern Europe, but it does happen in Italy. So there's that as well. I don't know about cost. We didn't look at very many homes there, but in terms of food, accommodations, and everything, it wasn't too bad. Yeah, like not much cons. And like I said, the higher we get up in this list, the less amount of cons you're going to see, obviously, because they made the list higher. So yeah, that is Italy, guys. That's coming in at number 7. So we're going to get up to number 6 now. Sorry, it's number 5. We're in a top 5 now. Getting ahead of myself here. Number 5 is probably my favorite British Isle. No, I'm going to say my second, obviously. There's one more British Isle that's higher on this list. But number 5 is probably my favorite British Isle on the Isle of Great Britain itself. And that is Scotland. My God, Scotland is gorgeous, you guys. If you guys love scenery and scenic anything, you like hiking, that kind of thing, you have to go to Scotland. Particularly like North Scotland, the Isle of Skye. A ton of movies are filmed there. It's got a ton of history, obviously the Highlanders and all that. The Celtic, cultures there. Old cities, Edinburgh, like even Glasgow, but more so Edinburgh. You got all these old castles, and it's got this real regal feel to it. Like the Queen's Mile in Edinburgh, it feels very, very, very regal, like you're in a medieval movie. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's fucking gorgeous. I love Scotland. I always wanted to return to the Isle of Skye. Yeah, that's the number 1 pro, is how gorgeous it is, I would say, for sure. Number 2 is the price of everything. Gas, for using the British pound, everything was very, very reasonably priced in Scotland as opposed to England. England, everything seemed a little more expensive. I'm not sure how their economy is for that to be that way. That was in 2018 we were there. But we were spending roughly about $90 Canadian to 100 Canadian a night for B&Bs. Which was great. Obviously the food as well. It was pretty much the same food as England. So, you got really nice English breakfasts. A lot of pork. Pork dishes and whatnot. Really good steaks there. Nothing like American steaks or Canadian steaks, but very, very good steaks regardless. Yeah, just amazing. Awesome place to go. The only con I would give it, obviously the weather. If you're not into island weather, it's really gloomy, it's really rainy, but if you're in Scotland, that's to be expected. You're thinking like of Scotland weather. It's going to be wet, it's going to be gloomy. It kind of adds to the charm of it. I haven't been there in the summer months. I've only ever been there in the fall months, and I know fall months and the winter months it rains quite a bit, but it really added to the charm. But it could be getting old if you're constantly soaking wet there for the most part. The other British Isle we're going to talk about is notorious for that as well, but again, in the same way it's a con, but it does add to the charm of the place. Another con is lack of familiarity and infrastructure, again, like most of these European places. You're driving on the left side of the road in the British Isles. Again, very, very narrow roads. So for my people that don't know what I'm talking about, there's no Fords there, there's no Dodges there, there's no GMCs or anything like that. You have your European car brands, your Renaults and what's the other one? The Pegasus? No, it's not called Pegasus. Maybe it is Pegasus. I don't know. Hondas, Hyundais, those kind of vehicles are there. They're tiny compact cars, and they're what mostly everybody drives, and it's because the roads are so narrow. Because a lot of those roads in the British Isles, especially in the countryside, they're converted horse trail roads from way back in the fucking day. So they're all over the fucking place, and they're thin, right? They're thin roads, just wide enough for those two little compact cars to pass head on. So it's kind of nerve-wracking in that sense. Like there's, like I said, zero room for error. Your mirrors are this close every time you pass. Pretty much, it feels like your mirror from the head-on car. You know what I mean? So there's that. Add that with the rain and everything else to it, and it can get pretty chilling. I remember we were playing in Glasgow, Scotland, late at night, and it was pouring rain all night. We got just outside of Glasgow, and actually there was a road with no lines on it. It looked like it was freshly paved, a black, freshly paved road, and it looked like a mirror. It was thick wall of trees on either side of the road, so it looked like a mirror. I really couldn't see the road. It really freaked me out. And that's another thing about these roads, guys. Especially in the British Isles, there's no shoulders. They have the occasional shoulder put into the road where you can pull over then, but you just can't pull over into any part of the shoulder. You'll be in a ditch. So there's that, right? That's what I mean when I say like lack of, unfamiliarity with the infrastructure. I'm sure I get used to driving that. For sure, when I'm there, I do the speed limit, and I have speed demons flying past me all the time when I'm there, and I'm like, oh my god, how are you guys driving this fast without killing yourself? But yeah, so that's it. That's number 5, Scotland. Like I said, a lot less cons the higher we go up on this list. Okay, so up next we have another island, and it actually isn't a British Isle. It is one of my most favorite places in the world. It would be higher on this list if it wasn't so isolated. Number 4 is the island of Iceland in the North Atlantic. The land of ice and fire. I've been here twice. I've been here for a total of a month, 2 weeks each time. Top 2 favorite places to visit in the world so far, I would say. The most relaxing vacation you will ever have. If you go with a friend or even yourself, man. But especially with your wife or your husband, rent a car and just drive the ring road. You go all the way around the ring road, and you just pull over on the side. You go to these natural wonders they have there: hot springs, geysers, world-class hiking, and the scenery. The scenery is like you're in Lord of the Rings. Like, I kid you not, the closest scenery I've seen as beautiful as that is Skye in Scotland. Skye in Scotland, it feels like you're gonna see the Rohirrim, riding over the hill towards you. But Iceland is different in that all the mountains are black, it's volcanic. And that leads me to the other part that's so fucking cool about this little island. It's got like different biomes. The south eastern point is like it's like a glacier. Like you're in the North Pole. You can go hike on glaciers and kayak in glacier lagoons and see seals, in these little lagoon rivers and creeks, and it's so cool. And then, you go 2 hours west and there's an active volcano spewing where you can hike to and go and look at it. And all along that ring road, there's world-class waterfalls that are in all kinds of movies. You guys have no idea how many movies Iceland's in until you actually go to Iceland. You see it all the time. You're like, holy shit, that's Iceland. Holy shit, that's Iceland. Holy shit, that waterfall's from Iceland. And on top of that all, there's hot springs, natural and man-made, all along that ring road. The natural ones obviously are my favorite ones, but you can really make a trip where you're driving the ring road and you're stopping, going to these waterfalls, stopping and going to a new hot spring every day to soak and relax. And the driving there, the infrastructure is pretty much the same as Canada or North America. The roads aren't nearly as narrow as they are in the British Isles. You're not driving on the left side of the road, you're driving on the right side of the road. Smaller cars still though, and no one's using, big cars there, big trucks. But the roads, especially in the main cities, Reykjavik, Akureyri, they're wide enough easily for 2 vehicles. It's not like, downtown Edinburgh or something. So yeah, those are all pros I'm naming you guys. The food's really good there too. I didn't really care for lamb dishes until I went to Iceland, and we had some real true lamb, like Vikings. It was really good. Every time I'm in Akureyri, we go to Rub 23, a really nice steakhouse. They have such good steaks and seafood there. It's so damn good. The stress, like I said, there's no stress there. You can't get lost. It's impossible to get lost. The entire road is marked with yellow spikes, the entire fucking road. I think you could drive the whole road in 3 days straight if you were to drive, but you can drive and get an Airbnb all the way along the road and spend like 10 days on a road, get back to Reykjavik, and then fly out. The negatives, it's an island. One of the reasons I wouldn't live there. Years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so, they were actually, because their population's like 300,000, it's crazy, that's the whole island. They were trying to get a population boom and get more tradespeople there and everything else. They were actually offering wives. They were offering you accommodations in these little towns. They needed you, and they were offering you wives. Of course, they were promoting these beautiful Scandinavian-looking women, on the website and on the ads and everything. And I remember it came out, and certain people had, taken this offer, and they weren't these Scandinavian Viking models. They were just like average-looking women, but it was a pretty sweet deal if you were a single guy, you were looking for maybe a wife, and you're an adventurous person, you like doing outdoorsy stuff, that would be okay. The winters there actually aren't bad. They're worse here, where I live, in terms of coldness and everything else. If you like Northern Lights, no place in the world that's like in civilization, or kind of civilization, like I'm talking about the major cities in Iceland, will you see Northern Lights as vividly as you will in Iceland. So there's that as well. But then, with the con, it's an island. Like, everything's going to be a little more expensive because it has to get brought to the island. You're very limited on where you go on vacations. It's going to cost you flights for sure to get off the island. There's that as well. Uncertainty with Mother Nature there is another thing. The people of Grindavik right now are not living in Grindavik. Grindavik's a little town near Reykjavik, which is right near the airport. It's actually on the way to the Blue Lagoon, Grindavik. Blue Lagoon's this world-class outdoor hot spring. You've seen pictures of it for sure. Crystal blue water, or milky blue water, and everyone goes there. I think it's shut down right now because a volcano actually erupted right near it. They actually saved the Blue Lagoon by diverting the lava flow. But the fucking the town is evicted. Like, no one can live there because of this, and that can happen on most of these points because there's so many active volcanoes there. Either directly from the volcano itself being near your town, or the gas, the wind blowing it, you might have to evacuate. So there's that too. That's a big one. Uncertainty with nature, and I think that'd be it. That'd be the only cons I'd give that. I fucking love that place. So that would definitely be at number 4. So number 3 is our last British Isle, and it's my favorite British Isle, and that is the country of Ireland. Someplace I definitely want to go back to. There's a few places, there's 3 or 4 places we've traveled that I definitely want to return to. Ireland is definitely one of them. Let's just go over the cons, get that out of the way, because there's so much pros to this place. Again, unfamiliarity with infrastructure, everything's small, even though I drove it for a week straight. 9 days technically, and I was super comfortable by the end of it. Again, the roads are super narrow, you're driving compact cars, that can be a little difficult. Price of living there, especially in Dublin, Belfast, especially if you're in northern Ireland, you're actually in the country of Great Britain. Everything is more expensive up there. You use the British pound. I guess the language barrier would be something else, like North Ireland people. It's hard to understand them, and people from Kerry County, they're very, very hard to understand. So it takes some getting used to. That's not really a con, it's just something you would need to get used to while you're there. The pros, the people are super, super friendly. They're happy. It's probably because they're drunk most of the time. I'm not kidding you. Drinking there is like it's like a way of life. It's a part of their culture. I'm not even bullshitting you. Every little town you'll come across in Ireland, and it could be a blink and you missed a town, has a pub. Their pub is part of their culture. It's part of their identity. I'll explain to you how the average Irish day goes for the most part, for most people, not everybody, but they'll get up, they'll go to work. At lunchtime, they'll go to the pub, and they'll have a pint of whatever they drink, mostly Guinness. Guinness is wonderful there. That's a huge pro as well, fresh Guinness. They'll get a sandwich, because most of these pubs are eateries as well. They serve like basic lunch menus, finger foods. They'll go back to work. After work, they'll go back to the pub with their co-workers, with friends that just got off work from other jobs as well. They'll have another pint. They'll discuss their day. They'll go home, have supper, meet whether with a spouse or parents, whoever they live with. And in that evening, they might go back out again, meet up with some friends maybe they didn't get to meet up with after work, have another pint. Listen to some live music, which is really big with those pubs. Yeah, they're just super fucking happy people. Like, it's everywhere you went, it was like not a party, not like a crazy party, but they're sipping their pints, just loving life, listening to live music. If you go to some of these pubs, they have awesome live Celtic music. Yeah, that's probably the number one is the people. Number two, obviously, I'm a big Guinness fan. Fresh Guinness on tap there. Oh, I'll never touch it. I literally have told people I would go back just for the Guinness. I got so addicted to it that I was actually driving drunk. Well, not drunk, but driving after consuming a pint of Guinness, which I could have gotten shit for, but we'd stop for like gas, and there'd be a pub next to the gas station, one of these little towns. So I'd go and I'd get a pint, like most everyone else does, and I realized I had 2 pints in like 4 hours in in 2 of these different kind of towns, and I was driving going, I can't be driving drinking pints again, man. I'm gonna lose my license here. And then what? Then we're fucked, right? Not only that, I don't get drunk. You guys have 2 pints of Guinness, but regardless if something would happen, I got in an accident, I would have breathalyzered me, I would have been in massive shit, but yeah, the food's good. Oh, Irish breakfast. You think English breakfast is good? Irish breakfast, man, they don't have bacon there. They have big chop of like fucking ham that they cook like bacon. It's one of the nicest things about being there is the whole bed and breakfast experience. I think they're the ones that really like started that whole thing, being bed and breakfast in Ireland. That's what a lot of people talk about. When they go on honeymooning and everything, you go and you bed and breakfast there. They always have those amazing Irish breakfasts in the morning, and the scenery, gorgeous British house scenery. They have some really, really interesting natural wonders there. Obviously, the causeways in the north, the Cliffs of Moher in the south. Glendalough Monastery is a really fucking cool valley with old stuff there. Again, it's another like British Isle, typical island. There's tons of castles there, tons of history. Especially when you go to Belfast, there's history with the IRA and all that stuff. You can take a black cab tour, and they'll take you to all these IRA murals, and it's the whole thing. It's great. And if you're big into Game of Thrones, a lot of it was shot in Northern Ireland, and they actually have an exhibit there now, which is another reason I'm trying to go back. Especially, I don't know if it'll be there forever, but they got an exhibit there with cast stuff, actual stuff from the set. And my wife's boss went, and she was showing us pictures. It made me definitely want to go back. Okay, so now we're in our top 2. And coming in at second place is a place very close to my heart because we have family we love very much there. And it's the country of, how should I say, Holland or Netherlands? I think Holland's the old name, Netherlands is the new name, but my whole extended family calls it Holland, so. But yes, the country of Holland. Great place. Very, very, very friendly place. They love Canadians there. They'll buy you beer like the bartenders will give you a free beer in bars if they know you're Canadian in certain bars. big tie with Canadians. It goes back to World War II. The Canadians are the ones that liberated Amsterdam as well. Canada actually kept the Queen of Holland in Canada during World War II. Their daughter was actually born in Ottawa, but they held off giving her a birth certificate until they got back to Holland, so she would still be a Dutch citizen. But it's the only time in Canada's history we didn't fly a Canadian flag above Parliament. We flew a Dutch flag the day that princess was born, and that's why we get tulips every year from them during their tulip season. So yeah, Dutchies and Canadians love one another, and the landscape, it's all flat. You know, a lot of it was harvested from the ocean. They actually built land onto the ocean, so it's all flat. You go there, you'll see a ton of windmills, and all those windmills are keeping the water out from the land they harvested. A super, super, super engineered people. Like, if you were to think of what the Dutch were, like if you were to think of in fantasy terms, they're like the dwarves. They're massive engineers, and they're innovative engineers. There's a fucking bridge in Amsterdam where you drive underneath it and boat over top of it. Like, the overpass is water. It's a boat bridge, basically, and you're driving underneath. We actually took a boat over that, my wife's aunt and uncle's boat. Food's great. The baking is fucking amazing. They're super, super free people, very liberal people. They accept everybody, they accept everything. Like, you go to the red light district in Amsterdam, the prostitution's legal there. They have, they're unionized. They have sex shows there. You know, they were legalized weed for years. You would go there, see, you know, people that love marijuana would go there to get high. They had coffee shops there. I remember in 2015 I went there and I smoked a joint as thick as my finger in a coffee house. It was called a Snoop Dogg, and it was full, like the highest THC you can get. I remember the guy, when I bought the joint, he's like, "You sure you want to smoke this? Because you don't smoke." I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "You should go half and half tobacco, half cannabis." I'm like, "No, man, give me the whole thing." He's like, "You sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." So the way these coffee houses are is it's a regular bar, but then they have double doors. You go to a back room, and it's just like restaurant tables, and you sit there and you smoke. As soon as you walk in, you smell all the smoke from all the other weed smokers. I smoked half of that joint with my wife, and they had Shark Week on because it was August. And I remember looking up at the screen, there was Euro trash music playing. You couldn't hear the TV, but it was Shark Week. I think I sat there for half an hour straight just staring at the screen, not even acknowledging my wife. She was doing the same thing. We were that fucking baked. As soon as we went out of there, we went out and we got a steak at this little steakhouse, and it was the best steak I ever ate in my life. I don't know if it was because it was high. But yeah, and then their baked goods, my God, man. Oh, it's to die for. They're baking there. If you've never been to Europe, European whipped cream is just, it's something else on its own. But I mean, you mix in Dutch baking and oh my God. Is there a con? Honestly, I don't know if there's a con. Cost of living, maybe. I know it is quite expensive there. I don't know. This country and the next country, there's not very much cons for me personally, but yeah, I love it. I love Amsterdam. I love the seasons, you know, tulip season. I love the scenery. I love the people. I love the culture. The historical significance of it all. Again, another place if you love architecture. It's absolutely gorgeous. I haven't been there during tulip season yet. We got there at the end and we just missed the tulip fields. But that from we were going to do a helicopter tour is something to behold. It's like you're in a real painting. Okay, so which leads us to our number one country I would like to live in. Surprise, surprise. It's Canada. Now this might be bias, obviously, as a Canadian, but I mean, we're the number 5 most, happiest places to live in the world for 2024, for a reason. It's, like I said, you're relatively safe here. I live in the most dangerous city in Canada in terms of violent crimes. There's been one shooting here in my last 10 years, or I've been here since 2004, there's been one shooting. the entire time I've been here. There's stabbings, just like in Great Britain, just like in Australia and New Zealand where guns are banned. There's stabbings, but there's no shootings. There's no mass shootings. There's no shootings in schools. And like I said, the most dangerous city in Canada. These things happen in the bigger cities, obviously. There'll be a shooting in Toronto probably every other day, maybe, with, gang shit and whatnot. But for the most part in Canada, you're safe. You're going to be safe. You're not going to get, murdered or anything like that. Like I said, universal health care is a huge thing. I've had family that, get cancer treatments. I actually had a friend that actually had to go get a follow-up cancer treatment, and that's what I mean, this propaganda. Don't let people tell you that, we're waiting for, a year to see a doctor. No, you're waiting a year to see a doctor if it's something minor. You got a cyst on your leg, and you're like, I want to get the cyst removed, doc. And he's like, well, is it life-threatening? Well, no, I just don't like it. It's like, okay, well, then we'll get you in when we can. We'll get a hold of you. And it could be 2, 3, 4 months. If you go, I got a bad MRI, I might have cancer. Like, well, we're going to see you next day or the day after. We're going to come and see us. They actually flew a doctor up from my friend who had abnormality with his blood work. He's in remission from cancer. They flew a fucking doctor up from Winnipeg. Got him to check him out under ultrasound, and he flew back that same night. So, I mean, yeah, we get universal health care. Is it like private health care where, you have a private doctor? You pay money, you can go see him right now for anything? No, it's not like that. You do have to make appointments, and your wait time is going to be based on what you're actually going to see a doctor for. So, yeah, the healthcare is a huge thing. Scenery, I should say the U.S. as well. That would be a pro. I should have mentioned as well the scenery. Same scenery as us. Gorgeous mountain chains, beautiful coastal cities and towns. Canada has everything to offer, really. We have prairies, we have the Arctic, we have the ocean, we have Great Lakes, we have mountain fields and beautiful wheat fields and prairies and thick boreal forests and almost rainforests when you go out to British Columbia. It's a gorgeous country. I love living here, and every time I get back to Canada from somewhere we've traveled, I'm so grateful we're back. It's just one of those things. So, again, I might be biased, but it is by far my favorite place to live in the world. And all these places, in this list and beyond, I like, I'm a city guy, but I don't like big cities. For my Canadian viewers, or listeners, I would prefer Saskatoon over Toronto, for example. I would prefer Winnipeg over Toronto, even. So yeah, I'm not in the big cities regardless. So yeah, that's going to be it for this list, guys. So that's my top 10 countries I've visited to or lived that I would like to live in. Like I said, 22 countries, 21 countries, 22. I counted last time. Regardless, I didn't do the whole list. I don't want to put one country dead last. So that's my top 10. But with that being said, guys, have a great day, great night, whatever it may be, and peace out. Peace out, peace out, peace out, peace out.